Rahim Bradley, Assalamu alaikum. And you know what? You're looking at the Underground Railroad, and the thing is, this is in the news, man. China, I don't understand what is going on with China. I don't understand the relations. I don't understand. I don't understand why. We're gonna discuss China in the United States of America. Who knows? It may be a World War III, and I hope not. But you, like me, I am disgusted. This thing is that I just don't understand. And I have a guest that's going to come on to talk about China and the provocations with the United States. I mean, they look, man. What I'm not really understanding is why is it that they flew a balloon over the United States of America through Alaska to collect information? I don't get it. I don't get it. You can call me and you can let me know your own self. Why do you think they did? And like today is 6/4/2023, and you can look back in history and see what we were going through with UK studies. And that was almost a collision. It was almost a collision where a Chinese frigate, a freighter, almost ran into, they came close to running into a U.S. warship. And I don't get it. I don't, I don't understand what, I don't understand what China is doing. What are they doing? I mean, and our leadership, in the United States of America, we don't appear to be oblivious to what they're doing. But I don't get it. And you know what? Maybe there's somebody out there that does get it. But what is the reason that a plane flew next to a United States plane that gathers information in international waters in the China Sea and was reckless and flew right in front of it? I don't get it. I don't know what's going on with the China leadership. I don't understand it because from what I understand, the China seas, and you know what, that is international waters. Okay, so you know what, China cannot claim. They cannot claim the whole China seas. Where's the China seas? What happened with the China seas is most of our products, goods, shirts, and blankets, if we get come through the China seas. You have a lot of transportation that comes through there for goods. And the thing is, if that is international waters, why? Why would China fly a plane right next to an intelligence gathering Air Force plane that is gathering information in international waters? Why? And you know what? I don't understand. Do you understand? If you understand, you know what? I would love for you to tell me why do you understand it? And I'm sitting here struggling to try. I'm sitting here trying to struggle to figure it out my own self. The telephone number is okay. I got brother Johnny coming in,
Hey,
and
how's it going, Cliff?
brother Johnny, how you doing, brother?
Doing well.
All right, man. He is he is a strategist. This guy gives great information. Who's your podcast? Come on, and then we gonna get on down with it. Okay. Hello.
Oh yeah, well, I'm still working on this. It seems like I'm breaking up.
Oh, you breaking up? Maybe you got to come out and then come back in. Okay. So what happened is he has a podcast, and you know what? Me and him were sitting back. We were discussing China. And we was discussing the provocations and the escalation of something that might happen in the United States and happen around the world. It might start a global war. But the thing is, Johnny, but you know what? Johnny had bought something to me. And who knows, for you that are listening out there, I think that it's a good idea to start at the very beginning. Can you hear me now, Johnny?
Yeah, I still might have to log out and log back in. I'll let you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I hear
So I'm,
I hear
yeah,
you
so I'm
loud and clear. I hear you loud and clear. And, you know, these type
okay.
of technical
Good.
problems happen when you're doing this. And what we're going to cover is we're going to cover China. We're going to cover them buying land in the United States of America and the conflict between them and Japan. And Nixon sitting up here meeting with the communist leader of China. And we're going to cover all that for you that are listening out. You that are listening. So you're going to come back in and come out, Johnny?
I might. I'm still
Why
trying to
don't you
fix
just
something.
log out and log? Why don't you just log out and log back in? That'll
I'm trying to
probably
see
be
if I have to. Okay, I think I don't have to. I think I might have fixed my
okay.
issue.
Okay. So you know what, Johnny?
Maybe. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
You know what?
So you.
You know what? I'm so used to being on Zoom, so I'm looking for my screen that should be up.
Mhm.
It's not up, so I'm like, what's wrong? Okay, so
Okay.
everything's
Okay. Okay. So you know what? I was sitting there, you know, I wanted to get to the beginning and the end of China, but you know what? Johnny said something to me that it just resonated with me, and it probably will resonate with you. You know what? Let's start at the beginning. I would like, you know what, Johnny? I would like to ask you about China and the United States of America. What is the reason that we have established a relationship with China? And I'm gonna come to, I'm on, and it's headed towards a conflict. Then I'm gonna come to other questions.
okay. So if I can, okay, if I guess I can answer that
Okay.
historically. So the stated reason for our relationship
hmm
building with China
hmm
was given by Nixon in 1972, I
Okay.
believe February 1972, where he basically what his stated reason was to lessen tensions and create a more global community that's inclusive of all nations. I mean, that's propaganda. Sounds like propaganda, but
Yes. What do y'all think out there? Y'all think there's propaganda? Call in if you got a different opinion of you. Go ahead, Johnny.
yeah. So that's the stated reason,
Mhm.
but I'm overly certain it has economic reasoning behind it. Uh, more than likely, the U.S. saw China as a potential market for
hmm
both import and export that would make financial sense or economic sense for the U.S.
And you know what? You know what I should have like. You know, should have really started out. My first question was. It's something that I don't understand, and there's a lot of people that don't understand it. But you're gonna give us clarity. First, I should have asked you, what is the reason that China and Japan have a schism? They have a conflict of cultures. What is the reason for that? There's a lot of people that don't know that. What's the reason?
So
Even before the war, huh?
right, so you could talk about current events as a reason, but as you started to say earlier, most conflicts has has historical roots. So the
hmm
conflict between Japan and China is one of those conflicts that have historical roots, and it goes back to before the Opium Wars, because Japan and China have been perpetually in conflict, uh, because Japan was both independently and collectively uh, a combatant or how can I say it, a occupier, a colonial power to China.
hmm
You know, So oftentimes they colluded with the West, and sometimes just independently they exercise colonial power over both Korea and China. And there was a lot of grave conflicts between the two that left a really bad history.
Mhm. It left a bad history. It caused a conflict. And today, historically, historically, China and Japan, they do not get along. Like I said, they have had wars, and it's you think because one is back. I mean, because Japan is backed by the United States of America. Is that a possibility of the conflict?
That's not the source of their conflict.
Hmm.
The It's the reason why the conflict takes the shape that it does, but it's not the source of the conflict. The source of the conflict, again, is historical, and currently, it seems like one of the biggest issues is the possession or and control of several islands in the South China Sea,
Hmm.
where which the Japanese call the Sen Senkaku Islands,
Okay.
and the Chinese call it the Diaoyu Islands.
Hmm.
However, recently, within I say the last decade at least,
Hmm.
Japan has purchased some of those islands from private owners, and
Okay.
they have established a restrictive air zone over them. And then China has come back and restricted a overlapping restrictive air zone within the same zone. So
Hmm.
it's just you know making the conflict more tense.
As we talk about that, you that are listening out there, you know what? I'm learning just like you're learning. And my, other question that what there was is one of the other reasons that China is mistrust of Western nations is because of what happened in opium wars. And what are the opium wars for people don't that do not know about the opium wars that happened between England and China? Can you give us information about that? Is that one of the reasons?
So the Opium Wars was because England and their trade with China had basically gone into a deficit, a trade deficit, whereas they traded in gold mostly because
Hmm.
apparently England had less goods that China wanted. China had more goods that London or England wanted. So therefore, the medium of exchange was gold, which could then China could use to purchase whatever from whomever it wanted. So
Gold
that
and silver.
that created a huge trade imbalance, where a mercantile economy like England aim is to have more gold flowing in than flowing out. So that great trade imbalance was unwelcome for England. So they want to create a balance more favorable to them. So they purposely get start dispensing opium
Yes.
to the Chinese, getting them hooked on drugs, so that the drug was being so now they finally have something that China wants, right? Which
Hmm.
is opium. So then they would get that flow of gold flowing back to England out of China, and kind of even out that, or basically put the balance of trade back in their favor.
Well, did the individuals that transported opium to um, China, did they have any remiss? Did they have any sorrow? Because what happened is a lot of people got strung out on opium. Did they have any sorrow? And what was the outcome of that? What happened?
Well, I mean, they don't I'm, I don't think nations have remorse, right?
Okay.
We see that even with in the African American community through the
Hmm.
years of slavery that we've endured.
Hmm.
There's a sense of in this country of you know that was back then,
Hmm.
and has nothing to do with now, and we all know that's not true. But this is the nature of the of governments, is that former governments have come, or I say the same governments, but of a different era, have done different things in different countries, and we come along, and rather than fixing them, we take advantage of it.
Hmm.
So we're putting forth a greater PR effort to
Yes.
look like maybe this is a kind of gentler world, but that certainly isn't the case. So there's a lot of diplomacy and you know PR being done to try to cover that up. But I don't think the sentiment has really changed. I think the only thing that really overcame that opium war.
Hmm.
Um, I can't even, to be honest, I don't know when it was actually over, but I think one thing that really began to turn that tide was the Boxer Rebellion.
Explain what that was. What was that?
Well, the Boxer Rebellion was a result, in my opinion, of both mainly of Western intervention, and then the uh, acquiescence of a lot of the Chinese leaders to what the West was doing, until there became a grassroots revolt against the system.
Yes.
So I believe that Boxer Rebellion was the impetus that led to the communist China.
Do you believe that this is one of the reasons that China is so mistrustful of Western influence? Do you think that's one of the aspects that's involved?
I'm sorry, ask the question again. I
I
was
said, do you
reading
think
some
that's
notes.
one of the reasons that communist China, is so suspicious and leery of Western influence because of what happened
Oh, for
during the war?
certain. I mean, you can definitely see it. You can see in all of their uh, diplomatic uh, and economic and military um, acts and responses, is that they're very sensitive to what the West does and says. Hey, I see one of your listeners dropped you a note.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you read that?
it says that the title is wrong, brother Bradley. It should be China is a threat. Oh, straight. Okay, I did it wrong. Oh, thank you. And I'm going to straighten it. I'm going to straighten that out. I'm so sorry. Thank you. And see, that's what happened, man. That's a typo. You know what? Thank you. And the thing is, Johnny, one what happened is when the Chinese leader came to power, okay, because of what transpired, okay, with the opium wars, he eliminated a lot of people that were strung out on drugs. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
what was his justification for doing it?
Okay, I'm losing your sound.
I'm saying,
Your
what was
sound.
his justification? What was his justification for doing it? Hello. I said,
Yeah,
what was his justification?
yeah, I heard you. I heard you. Um,
Okay.
um, trying to remember the guy's name. Cal Pot. Probably not saying his
Yeah.
name right, but he did pretty much the same thing. And I think it's just, and there's another leader today that's doing the same thing to a degree. He may not be killing people, but
Hmm.
he is killing some people and locking them up somewhere in the southeast Asia, in one of those
Okay.
islands there. But I
Okay.
think it is exactly what it looks like. He's killing what he sees as the problem.
Yeah,
So
back
he's
then, yeah. So he eliminated that problem.
and
You know, Johnny.
so it's basically he's taking out the market for the opium, and by in a very literal sense, and then
Mhm.
maybe, and I think that instill fear, the ones who he don't kill, that instills fear in them so that they, know fear getting hooked on opium, and it kind of changing people's minds with fear basically.
What do you think out there that the people that are listening did their chairman do the right thing by eliminating individuals that became addicted to opium during the opium wars? What do you think? I mean, you can call in or you know some in the chat room, okay? And you know what, Johnny? You know what? Going back to President Nixon. President Nixon, I'm tricky. I'm not gonna say the other
I
word, okay? But you know what? Do you think that it was a good thing that President Nixon, some people call him tricky, I'm not going to use the other word begin with a D, and he was involved in the Watergate issue, but do you think that it was in the best interest of the United States of America to become develop a relationship with communist China? And I got a follow up for that.
I think um I guess it was worth the risk. You never know how international relations are going to develop, but I
Mhm.
think reaching out to create uh, diplomatic ties is usually a good thing, and economic ties obviously is a good thing because these countries obviously see some benefit in trade. So I think it was worth the risk.
When you say that, do you think it was for the betterment of the United States of America, if it was a detriment to the United States of America because so many companies left the United States of America and went to China because they found out they could produce things at a cheaper price? Was it for the betterment or a detriment?
I think if you're looking at it from a consumer perspective, and if you're looking at
Mhm.
it from a corporate perspective, you might answer yes, because apparently that makes the products that we want so much cheaper. And
Mhm.
if they're cheaper for us, then the corporations, it's more profitable for them.
Okay.
But the
So
only only difference is okay, for how long, right? So it has a time, within a certain time period. So
mhm,
eventually, we know all things tend to trend towards balance.
mhm,
Things tend to trend towards balance. So
mhm.
you can, if something's out of whack, there's a lot of natural forces to bring it back in a balance. So if China is cheaper to produce in China, just the nature of economics will eventually bring that back in balance. Name specifically what's going to happen back course is that the trade imbalance favorable to China will increasingly raise the standard of living in China as it is, and then so that the persons who make these products will have a higher expectations about their returns or their income for their labor, which would then make labor more expensive, which would then make products more expensive, which means now there has to be find another labor market and manufacturing market for goods, or you're just going to, it's just going to be equal across the board, and you can just pick according to however you you know, I guess your favorite nation.
Favorite nation. So you know what? Right now, you know what? China is a threat to the United States of America. I would like to ask you something. That we are in debt to China. We're in debt to China. I have a question for you. What if China hypothetically decided to call that debt and say we want what is owed to us since they have formed they have a new currency that they're coming out with called BRICS. If they made the decision, we're going to call our debts. Okay. And we, you know
Oh,
what, we're going to build bricks. Bricks, people that don't know, bricks is creating a new currency with South Africa, Brazil, India, I think Saudi Arabia. So what happens then? If what happens?
South
I'm not
Africa,
I'm
yeah.
not an economics. Yeah, South Africa. I'm not an economics major. So what happens?
and and and
Hypothetically,
and there are like 18 other countries that's applying for the BRICS.
yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, so what happens is the sequel to Birth of a Nation
Okay. Well, can you familiar?
called
Okay.
yeah. So that the sequel to Birth of a Nation would be Death of a Nation.
Okay. Okay.
That's what will happen
Do you think that there would? Do you think? Why do you say that? Why? Why? Hey, I know
because
it would devalue the dollar, but I'm trying to get the aspects of why.
no,
Say
it wouldn't devalue the dollar. It would make the dollar disappear. The dollar will have zero value.
okay.
So
Can't hear you. Go ahead. Mhm.
so it wouldn't
Now you good. Go
devalue the
ahead.
dollar. It would just the dollar would be worthless, and it'd be just like foreclosing on a house, and so America would not be functional.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
so 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 the U.S. will have two options to
Yes.
become a what's the word, a protectorate, forget the political terms, they basically a subordinate nation to China, or you have war, one of the two.
World War III. Yeah, man. And you know what? Nobody wins in doing a nuclear holocaust. Do you, but do you know what? When something I would like to ask you about. I would like to ask you. They are based. China is sort of claiming the China seas because they have built up their naval forces and they're threatening. Threatening. In other words, in 2023, there was a ship that came 150 yards from a U.S. military vessel, and it was Chinese. Why? What? What have we done? I'm talking about the United States to for them to make a provocative action like that. What?
So
What
this is
have we
just,
done?
I mean, this is just history repeating itself.
Okay.
The actors may have changed, and the roles may have changed, but it's just history repeating itself. This is what countries do. They're always seeking advantage over another country, and then once they gain that advantage, they use that advantage. At some point, as I spoke earlier, that law of balance kicks in, things
Hmm.
start balancing out, so that those who were subjected to uh, economic, political, or military oppression starts to get on, near equal footing. So they start challenging, and
Hmm.
then perhaps the powers that be push back, and then it's always a pushback like that. So it's a never end, because I mean, for all of those years surrounding the opium wars,
Yes.
you had all of these nations just constantly uh, invading or occupying
Mm-hmm.
challenging China. They didn't just let China be. you know,
Yeah.
whether it was Russia by land
Yes.
or the Brits by sea or Japan, no one was just letting China be.
Mm-hmm.
Just like no one lets Afghanistan be, just like no one lets any other countries in Africa be, just like Russia is not letting even the Inuits be, up in the poles. They in the poles building military bases.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a never ending seek for advantage and never a moment of actual peace
Mm-hmm.
and just letting people be.
Yeah, you got a question for you, Johnny. It says Boxer Rebellion. Interesting. This is similar to one of the hidden reasons why the U.S. was in Afghanistan to take over the poppy fields. Okay. How else can you control China? You want to respond to that?
Well, I think that even after the Opium Wars, there was a lot of manipulation of China so that China couldn't get on a footing to be the economic power it is today. And what I think the main thing that has fixed China is just basically looking at the mistake of a lot of past um, continents and uh, dynasties, whether it be the ones in Africa, whether it be the Ottoman Empire, uh, just looking at how that certain countries and regions of countries have been subjugated due to a lot of infighting. For
Mhm.
example, the Ottoman Empire fell mostly because of a lot of infighting, whereas they controlled more of the world than the Romans did,
Okay.
but it failed because there was a lot of infighting and bickering. And that's the one thing that has affected China over the centuries, is that you had so many regions of China, and it's like they recognize a singular fate and the need for cooperation,
Hmm.
but somehow they never was able to coordinate themselves as one force, whereas the Europeans uh, would, even though they fought among each other, they would unite against the Chinese. And the
Hmm.
Chinese never really get the need for not just unity but organization around that unity.
Hmm.
So that's you know the only other way, I guess, to control China is by dividing it, and that doesn't seem to be an issue right now.
You know what? When we talk about it, does it bother you? Or alarm you? Are you leery about what the outcome is going to be now that China and Russia, which are two superpowers, have
Hmm.
a good working relationship? I believe that Russia is going to be subordinate to China. But does that bother you? And what could come of it, in your opinion?
Um, I mean, we certainly know that war can come of it. That's for
Okay.
sure, and that's usually the outcome, and that's normally the course that of world history, is that you have a power, whether it be the Persians or whether it be the Carthaginians supplanted by the Romans, or you
Hmm.
have the Goths, or then you have the splitting of the two Roman Empire. It's it's world history is a course in power struggles and waves of ascension to or emergence to power, right?
Hmm.
So where you have a obvious strong man
Yes.
and then they basically dictate the rules, and then more than likely they over expand, and uh, some other country begins to start gaining power
Hmm.
more and more, and then they get to the point where they're able to challenge, and those are generally not resolved peacefully. Like, within a nation, at least in the US, up until the
Hmm.
2020, we were able to do a peaceful transfer of power nationally,
Hmm.
but internationally, those are not normally resolved except by war.
Wow, man. You know what, brother? There is a war going on with Russia and Ukraine against NATO. Do you think it's a possibility, since China has relationships with Russia, that they will start giving them military arms incognito? In other words, they will give them weapons that will be labeled with somebody else's name or I know label with. I covertly, let me use the word covertly. Do you think that they will covertly start to give Russia weapons that are lethal?
Well, they. I don't know. I think that if they start supporting Russia, I don't think it'd be covertly.
Why
I
you
think
say that? Because wouldn't that threaten them doing trade with the United States of America?
because I don't think they
Or-
gain anything by doing it covertly. Because for one, it's not like the U.S. is not going to find out. I mean,
And now wait a minute, man. I can ship something to somebody and don't even put my label. That's not a possibility.
yeah, yeah, you could ship it and not put your name on it, but U.S. just they have ways and means of finding out what's going on in the world, whether it be by satellite, whether it be like spies, informants,
Hmm.
double agents.
Hmm.
They gonna find out.
Yes, sir. And China is such a threat, and you know what is? I was saying, do you believe? Because there are many proponents that are saying that the social media TikTok should not be allowed in the United States of America because it is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party and it is collecting information on U.S. citizens. What did you think about it, and do you think the congressmen are right or wrong about
Yeah, so I think first of all, we just gonna talk about the human nature and the norms of nations
it?
and
Okay.
the way governments
I don't know what happened to my
conduct themselves.
background, but go ahead. Go ahead. Uh
Yeah.
huh. Hmm. Go ahead. I'm listening to you.
So I don't think just looking at the the norms, how the governments normally act, way nations normally act,
Hmm.
including human nature.
Hmm.
Usually whatever they can do to get an advantage, they will do to get an advantage.
Hmm.
So uh there seems obvious that there can be an advantage gotten by siphoning people's information from TikTok. So if they
Okay.
can do it, no doubt they're doing it. So there's no way we should be sitting back saying, well, they probably have integrity, and even though they have control over TikTok, they probably will have integrity and not actually use the information that they have.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, that's not this world.
Okay. And you know what? You got a question in the chat room. Thank you, Mr. Kevin. It said China just condemned the Ukrainian war a couple of days ago to the UN Council. And what he wanted to know is he's not sure if it's just a tactic that is from China. What do you think? In other words, they condemned it, they talking about it, but they really for it. That's what he said. What do you think?
Well, I'm sure they have some strategic reason for it.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't see it incongruent with uh, China's traditional posture,
Hmm.
because you know, like even if you want to put Taiwan in the mix and say, okay, well, doesn't that conflict with their potential uh, uh, annexation of Taiwan? From their perspective, it probably doesn't,
Hmm.
because you know they probably think they have more claims to Taiwan than Russia has to Ukraine.
Okay. Okay. It's talking about
Because
you. Oh, go ahead. I'm
yeah,
listening.
because uh, the history of it, how the Chinese government went into exile into Taiwan, and then it was recognized as a state. So I'm sure they don't agree with that statehood. They see it as part of one China.
Hmm.
But as far as Ukraine, I think Ukraine is universally recognized as an independent country. That yes, Russia did exercise authority over it, or the USSR did exercise authority over it, but
Yes.
it was an independent country, and it has the right to self-determine and say, okay, we don't want to be a part of your union, just like England withdrew from the EU. Well, not well, from
Hmm.
yeah. Um, I'm got to get my facts straight now.
Okay. Go ahead.
But
Okay.
just like the British Brexit, they have a right to withdraw.
Okay.
So
Okay. I mean, I don't know if you're aware. There was a bilateral agreement that was signed by Gorbachev and um, Ronald Reagan that in that to end the Cold War. It said
hmm
in that agreement, it said that no nation
hmm yes,
could
I know. Yeah,
harm
exactly.
nature.
True.
In that agreement, and they
Yes, true.
both agreed to that.
Yeah,
You know, so it appears as though someone reneged. It appears,
yeah. I
but I gotta
mean,
get.
that's yeah. I mean, look. It looks like a renege. um, so definitely.
Okay.
So I mean, it's yeah, it's hard to justify it. I mean, I'll put it like this: it it brings up the ultimate issue in national and international relations,
Okay.
because for one country to sign a treaty with another country about a third country, that seems in court they would say you have no standing.
Oh, why didn't the United States make the statement when the treaty came out? Say this.
Right, that's
That,
true. They should have
so
been like, we have no standing in that. We can't sign an agreement for another country.
that's like if the Chinese, which have relations with Venezuela, and there is a pact saying you cannot put any weapons in Central America, and they have a pact. Do you think that
Mhm.
would justify for China to put weapons, missiles, nuclear warheads in Venezuela, seeing as though they are allies? Yeah.
Well, that's technically different
How's it different?
because that's an agreement with the U.S. and China, right?
No, that's agreement. Yeah, it is an
Or
agreement.
is it an agreement with the
I'm
U.S.
saying
and Venezuela?
it's saying is if they decide we are allies now, we're going to put weapons in Venezuela and nuclear weapons. You know the United States would be outraged. Would they
Yeah, it's
not?
true.
So what I'm
But that's
saying
that's
is,
different because
how's it
you
different?
have two countries that's making an agreement that's within their power.
Didn't China? I mean, didn't Russia and the United States make agreement that was within their power? I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
No, that power of determination in terms of what alliance you will make, what political commitments you will make, lies solely with Ukraine.
So Venezuela would have the right to have nuclear capabilities if China or Russia decided to put nuclear weapons, that would be okay. So in other words, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, isn't it?
No. See, because I
Well,
mean,
wait a
I'm not familiar with the treaty,
minute.
right?
What I'm
So I'm not
saying,
familiar with that
what I'm
treaty.
saying is,
But I do know, that if the U.S. has a treaty with Venezuela for them not to receive uh, weapons from a particular country, that's okay. I mean,
then
that's something within the two parties' power. If the U.S. has a treaty with China not to put weapons in Venezuela, that's legitimate. That's a treaty between two powers, right?
was there not a legitimate treaty between the United States and Russia saying that no nation would join NATO? I'm
See,
trying, I'm trying, I'm trying
get
to,
get what you're saying.
I'm trying to understand what you appear to be saying is it's right for one and it's not right for the other.
No, I'm saying
You appear to be saying it.
a treaty between two nations is binding on those two nations alone. A treaty between two nations should not be binding on a third nation.
So if Venezuela wanted to get nuclear weapons in there, that would be okay. That would be okay, right? Because they have a treaty.
Who's the
They
who's
have a
they
treaty
have a
with
treaty with who?
they have a treaty with
With
China
who?
and Russia, and that's
Who
in our. I'm talking about Venezuela.
have a treaty with China and Russia?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So would that be
So
okay? Would that be okay for them to have nuclear weapons in this hemisphere?
I don't think that's the treaty because
It is.
Venezuela, Russians.
They have a bilateral agreement, brother.
No, if that treaty has to be between the U.S. and China or the U.S. and Russia, it's not between China and Venezuela or the U.S. and Venezuela, because they wouldn't make such a treaty
That's not
because
true.
all they have to do is not do it.
Venezuela is trying to put in an application to get in BRICS right now. That's not true. But
So no, it's because the BRICS is a different thing, and
okay, what I'm
but it
saying
still
is,
holds that
but,
they are a
but
sovereign nation who can
Brazil,
choose to be a part of BRICS.
okay, Brazil and Russia and China, they have an agreement where they have friends, they have partners. It's like me and you are friends, and I say, man, hold my gun. And me and you are friends, and we fighting against other people. So, in other words, what you appear to be saying is it is okay for the Ukraine to get all of these arsenals from NATO, but it is not okay from a country that China and Russia are friendly with and have relations with to get military weapons. You appear to be saying that, so but if I'm misunderstanding you, let me know.
Let me use your example. Okay. So, um, let's say you and I are friends, right? And then we have a third party.
Mhm.
Okay. If I have an agreement
Mhm.
with the third party,
Mhm.
well, no, just I don't cancel the friendship thing. It's just you, me, and a third party.
Yeah.
So I make an agreement with a third party, sign a treaty, a contract for them not to give you no weapons.
Mhm.
Okay, I got a treaty with that third party for them not to do something.
That's correct.
That's binding on both of us, on me and that third party,
Mhm.
right? So if he gives
Interesting.
you weapons, it's a violation of our treaty.
But
Now,
my
now,
question.
now, hold on. Now, hold on. Let's set up like this. Okay. Using the same parties. If I make an agreement with that third party
Mhm.
that you, not that they, but that you cannot join any group that third party is in.
Yes, it's true.
I didn't make a treaty with you. I made a treaty with that third party saying that you cannot join any party that they're part of.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, that's not binding on you.
Well, let me ask you. What I'm trying to ask you the question is, if I am Russia and China and I establish a relationship with Brazil, Peru, and we make an
Say,
agreement to
but
me
but let me
putting,
let me let me add.
you
I'm
said
sorry. Give me a
you
sec.
would you
Let's just
would I be
hold on.
wrong?
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. Just let me add to that. Okay. So I make an agreement with a third party that they are not to allow you to join any group that they are in. Okay. So I have an agreement with them, but I don't have an agreement with you,
Well, I
right?
break. I just say I break.
I'm dictating your terms, right? You're a third party. I don't have a treaty with you. I'm limiting your self-determination of what you can do, and I don't even have a treaty with you.
Let me ask you the question a different way. Does China? I mean, does anyone in the other hemisphere have the right that they have agreement with China and relationships with China and Russia? Do they have the right to have nuclear capabilities? If that's the agreement that they came. Do they have a right, in your opinion?
I mean,
Well, and what we do
might
that?
makes right.
Wait a
I'll
minute.
put it to you like might in this case makes right.
I'm gonna give you an example. Everybody out there, okay? Everybody knows that Cuba, Cuba had relations with Russia, and what happened is
Mhm.
Russia attempted to send missiles, okay, to Cuba, and the United States said we will not stand for it. They said this. Is that not true?
Well, I know
I'm
this.
talking about the
I don't
Cuban
know if
Missile
this
Crisis.
system must have bugs in it, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
man.
because I'm getting funny stuff happening with my computer. But
Okay, but you do know about the Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, so using that for example. Um. So I'm trying to remember. It's my memory.
Oh, come on. You
I,
remember the Cuban
I
Missile
remember the
Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis,
Oh,
but I'm
come on.
trying to remember if I think that did break a treaty between the U.S. and Russia. I think we did have a treaty that they couldn't do that. I'm pretty
No,
positive
we
we
never
did.
had a treaty. Never. Never had a treaty. Like that's not true. That's not true. But you know what, man? I want to, get to something else because I know we running low on time. Let me ask you something, man. Does it bother you? Is China a threat to the United States of America? Is that threatening when they fly a balloon over Alaska in the United States of America to collect information? Is that a threat to our sovereignty? And why?
Yeah, it's definitely a threat and it's a violation. Um, so who who knows what they did, could have done, or will do.
Mhm.
Because they're violating our airspace. We don't know what's in that balloon. It could be a nuclear bomb. It can be biological weapons.
Mhm.
So that was definitely a critical issue that should have all of us uneasy.
Mhm. And you know what? It's documented that China has set up police stations within the United States of America. Is that threatening? Is that wrong? That's documented.
Mm.
What do you think
Um.
about that?
So I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Okay, that is documented that China has set up small police stations
Right.
in
Right.
the United States unauthorized. Is that not a
Right.
threat to the United States sovereignty? Is that right? Is it wrong?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. China's and Russia. They pretty much getting out of hand, and it's a huge threat. It's basically a way of exercising authority and creating fear in another country, whereas you have some Chinese citizens come here and it seems like it will create the potential that you have U.S. citizens of Chinese descent, specifically, that may be so afraid
Mm-hmm.
and may be under the influence of the Chinese government
Yes.
because they got police stations in a foreign country. Oh, that's ridiculous.
And you know what, Johnny. You know what, Johnny. I would like to ask you is that I know by doing research that China has purchased land in the United States of America that is located by military bases. Okay, is that a threat to our sovereignty? Is it a possibility that they collect the information or they just like the property?
Well, again, I think if they can, they will. So if they can collect information, pose any type of a threat, they will. I think that's really uncomfortable. That's really uncomfortable.
Mhm. And it's catastrophic, brother. And if if China does decide to invade Taiwan, which many military experts and generals have said they will do because they have built up their navy. I'd like to ask you: do you think that the United States should get involved with that, or should we just recognize them as one China, China and Taiwan? What do you think?
Oh yeah, well the US is going to get involved and they have to because the one advantage that the US has right now, one significant advantage, uh I mean, well, the US has several advantages, but
Mm-hmm.
the one that's really keeping a economic, even a military gap between the US and China is that chip advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So these chips, many of them are made in Taiwan. A lot of them are stored in Taiwan. So if they Chinese were to invade Taiwan, they will create instantly a chip deficit
Mm-hmm.
in much of the world and a chip surplus in China if they were able to actually uh, take over Taiwan.
Y'all hear that out there? And Johnny, you know what? This question is: do you believe that the United States of America and Joe Biden, I'm not going to say Donald Trump, but do you believe that Joe Biden is taking the right posture in response to all of these threats and things that have happened with China involving the United States? Did he respond appropriately? Should he be
Well,
quiet? Should he be quiet, or should he be quiet and carry a big stick? What did he respond appropriately? The U.S. government and Joe Biden, did they respond appropriately? Because it appears as though everything China does, they say we made a mistake. We're sorry. We're sorry. Did he respond appropriately? If not, what should have been the action?
I mean, I think okay. I think that we need to send a couple of balloons, you know what, or a few planes into their airspace.
So Joe Biden is being, you saying Joe Biden is being soft. Is that what
No, well, I think that I put it like this: we would be justified to do so. I mean, I don't know if that's what we should do. Is you know, sometimes international politics, needs the same application that we would do on in our personal, I would say, politics, right? So you can't go around responding to every provocation. You have to pick your battles, and the U.S. has done that on some occasions. I think sometimes they've done less than that, but they've shown the ability to pick their battles, and I think that's good.
Mhm. What is the possibilities of a World War III with all of these turbulent issues that are going on globally? what is the possibility of
100%.
to set the doomsday clock? You see, it's 100% not. It's at okay. The doomsday clock. We might as well set that up.
Like much guaranteed.
Okay. Well, Johnny, I have been asking you, brother. You put it on out there, and the people that are looking and in the chat room. I'm ready to go to his show because he's got a show coming up. When's your show coming up? I want to thank you, brother, for and give me some. You got some finishing comments you would like to give to the people and disseminate the information about your podcast.
Yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
my show is still in development, so I'm just trying to get things right before all of my presentations, and I started, inviting people on. So I've put together some shows, but it's like a trial and error, seeing what works and what tweaks I need to make. So once it's put all together, I'll start advertising, where I can be found at, and that way I could just start building from there.
Okay. Do you had any finishing comments on China? Why China is a threat to the United States of America? Not a threat to the United States of America.
Say again. Oh, I mean, they're a threat, but it's a typical threat. And in this sense, this is the course of the world. There's always countries vying for advantage, and even if you are a peaceful country, you just want to be left to be, it's not going to happen. So for that reason, you have to be aggressive too. You have to be, and it's unfortunate, that's just the nature of our world.
I think they kind of, to me, I think they kind of fear Donald Trump. I mean, some vote for him, but
nobody's afraid of Donald Trump. I wish people would get that. No one's afraid of Donald Trump.
I kind of believe they would. I kind of believe a lot of this stuff they wouldn't have done. First of all, they didn't vote for him. First of all, people out there that vote, you should vote for whoever you want to vote for. I think it's a lot of things that happened on President Joe Biden's watch. It wouldn't have happened on Donald Trump's watch. But I wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. I'm not gonna give my reasons.
Look, a lot of people give credit to presidents that certain entities, nations, for example, are afraid and won't do things based on who that president is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much to that, because when you're dealing with the US, for example, for one, you're not just dealing with the president, you're dealing with a cabinet, a whole group of people who are considering a lot of different things, whereas the president is pretty much the spokesperson who is going to stand behind a collective decision as it ought to be. He's not going to make decisions on his own. You just don't have that.
You know what? I kind of disagree, because I know what happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Kennedy stood up and said, "This won't be tolerated." Then there was a bomb that was dropped. The president made a decision to drop a bomb on Japan in retaliation for what happened to Pearl Harbor. And the president can make a difference in crucial.
Well, no, the president in neither of those cases made the decision.
He did.
That's why he has a cabinet. He's the spokesperson. He's the one that's going to come out and say, "This is what we're doing," and then make the people understand why we're doing it.
So,
but
you say the president has a red button, right? That once.
No, he doesn't. I mean, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Like, he got it.
I'm just saying, he has a red button. He's gonna have the final decision for a nuclear holocaust. Well, That's for
No,
another show.
no, I'm pretty.
That's for
No, he
another show.
doesn't have the final decision.
That's in the act
Yeah,
in the act in the
that's a
act of
show.
war. It's a different situation. But you know what, man? So what I'm gonna get ready to sign on off all of the people. A lot of people looking on YouTube. Thank you. And these other websites. And you know, if you enjoyed this, I'm not even going to ask for a thumbs up or thumbs down because you know what, if you liked it, you'd do it. If you don't, but we did the best we could to present the information the way it is. And thank you for the individuals that listen in and share this content because we're trying to grow this platform. Thank you. All right, brother. I'll give you. Send me the link. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum.